Okay, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're cracking open a source that's all about security governance.
Right. And if that sounds maybe a little dry, stick with us.
Yeah, because this is actually the critical stuff, the framework that keeps our digital world and, the physical parts connected to it operating securely.
Absolutely. Think of it like the essential architecture of trust inside any organization. It's the whole system, really. Rules, processes, structures.
Making sure things are protected.
Exactly. Not just with technology, but with clear responsibilities, defined practices.
So our mission for this deep dive is simple. Take all this information and pull out the really important nuggets for you. We want you to walk away understanding not just what security governance is, but really why companies pour so much effort into it. Policies, standards, roles.
And how it all connects, how it impacts building software or, who's accountable if there's a breach.
We'll hit the big concepts, look at key industry standards that shape things globally, maybe even touch on some surprising bits like physical security.
Yeah, definitely. And the practical side, too, like the life cycle for building secure software or the different hats people wear when managing data.
Consider this your shortcut. Key insights, things to chew on. All right, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's start right at the beginning. The source makes a really fundamental distinction. Guidelines versus policies.
Yes, super important difference.
They're both rules, kind of, but they work very differently.
They really do. Guidelines are more like recommendations, structured advice, best practices.
So suggestions.
Adaptable.
Exactly. They guide your decisions, give you options, maybe suggest how to handle something securely, but they're not rigidly enforced.
Okay, best practices, got it.
Policies, though, that's different. They're the mandatory rules. They create a rigid framework.
Prescriptive,
yes.
Yeah.
Defining exactly what you must do to meet security goals or operational goals.
So things like how you use company email.
Right. Resource use, data security steps, what to do in a crisis. Policies set those non-negotiable standards. One suggests, the other commands. Simple enough. And the source lists quite a few common policy types.
It does. There's the acceptable use policy, the AUP, ground rules for using tech resources.
Email, internet, like you said.
Yeah. Then information security policies, absolutely core. How sensitive info must be protected, access controls, encryption, that sort of thing.
And then there are ones focused on keeping things running, right? Resilience.
Definitely. The business continuity plan, or BCP, keeping essential operations going during a disruption.
And disaster recovery.
DAR. DAR is related, but the source clarifies it's specifically about restoring the IT systems after the disaster hits. BCP is broader continuity. DR is IT recovery.
Okay, clear distinction. What else?
Incident response policy. That's your playbook for handling a security breach. Who does what? Communication, technical steps.
Crucial when things go wrong.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And change management policies. Vital for making sure system updates or process changes happen smoothly, securely, without breaking things.
Makes sense. You can't just wing it with critical system changes.
No, definitely not.
The source also flags the software development lifecycle, SDLC, as a key process often governed by policy. This feels like a big one for a lot of places.
Oh, it's huge. The SDLC is basically the structured way software gets built, hopefully securely and efficiently, from idea to launch.
And security needs to be part of that from the start.
Ideally, yes. Baked in, not just, bolted on at the end. That's where policy helps enforce it.
Okay, the source mentions two main approaches here, waterfall and agile. What's the difference they highlight?
So waterfall is the classic linear method. One stage finishes completely, then the next one starts. Development, then testing, then deployment.
Step by step. Rigid.
Pretty much. The source says one stage must be complete before the next. Provides structure, but less flexible if things change.
Which they often do in software.
Which they often do. So agile is the alternative. More flexible, iterative. Work happens in short cycles, sprints they call them.
Allows for quicker changes, faster delivery.
Exactly. Rapid adaptation, delivering working pieces of software more frequently.
Okay, but regardless of waterfall or agile, the source outlines four main stages in the SDLC process.
It does. It starts naturally with development. That's writing the code.
The actual programming.
Right. Choosing secure languages, handling code from multiple developers, integrating it all. That's the focus.
Then comes test.
Test stage focuses on regression testing, making sure the application works as expected, does what it's supposed to do.
Fit for purpose.
Fit for purpose.
Yeah.
And the source makes a key point here. Development and test are primarily dealing with the code itself.
Okay. Code written, code tested. What's next?
Then you move to staging. This is a really critical transition.
How so?
Because staging is where the code becomes an application. It gets built, deployed into an environment that mimics production.
A sandbox.
A sandbox, yeah, often using real or similar data. And crucially, this is where other checks happen. Vulnerability scanning.
Looking for security holes.
Exactly. Quality assurance checks, applying any needed patches or changes found in testing. The source stresses that QA must be passed here before going live.
So staging is like the final dress rehearsal, making sure the application runs, it's secure, it meets quality standards.
Perfectly put. And if it passes QA in staging,
Then it's production time.
then it's production, deployed for end users.
That reminder about dev test focusing on code and staging, handling the application and other checks is actually really helpful.
It clarifies the flow, definitely.
Okay, so these internal policies, SDLC processes, they don't just appear out of nowhere. They're influenced by external industry standards, right?
Heavily influenced, yeah.
Why are these standards so important for governance?
Well, the source says they provide a common framework, consistency across different organizations.
Like everyone speaking the same security language?
Kinda, yeah. And alignment with best practices, things developed by experts. Plus, they often help meet regulatory requirements. It promotes a baseline level of security.
Got it. The source goes into several key organizations and their standards. Big names here.
Absolutely. ISO, the International Organization for Standardization, is a major one globally.
ISO 27001. Heard of that one?
Probably they're best known for security. It's a comprehensive framework for an information security management system, an ISMS.
A whole system approach.
Holistic, risk-based, focused on continuous improvement, widely recognized internationally.
And ISO 27002.
Wow.
Related.
Very related.
What?
27002 provides the guidance on implementing the security controls within a 27001 framework. Think of it as a catalog of best practices.
Like access control, crypto.
Access control, cryptography, incident response, physical security, lots of areas. So 27001 is the management system, the what, and 27002 provides detail on the how, the specific controls.
Okay, that makes sense. What about privacy? That's huge now.
Right, so there's ISO 27701. It actually builds on 27001 to create a framework for managing privacy. Privacy Information Management System, or PIMS.
PIMS, okay.
It's designed to align with big privacy laws like GDPR in Europe, CCPA in California, promotes transparency, helps manage data subject rights like accessing or deleting their data.
So it integrates security and privacy.
Exactly, it's a key connection. ISO also teams up with the IEC, the International Electrotechnical Commission. They have cloud-specific stuff.
They do. ISO IEC 27017 is for cloud security. Guidelines for both the cloud provider, the CSP, and the customer, because it's shared responsibility in the cloud.
Precisely. It addresses those shared responsibilities, cloud-specific risks.
And 27018, cloud privacy.
Correct. ISO IE 27018 focuses on protecting personally identifiable information, PII specifically in the cloud, transparency, consent, access controls for PII, building trust in cloud services.
Okay, moving away from ISO, the source mentions NIST, big in the U.S.
Yes, the National Institute of Standards and Technology. NIST SP 853 is a foundational cybersecurity standard from them.
What's key about it?
It provides this huge catalog of security controls, but the big thing is its customizability. Organizations pick and tailor controls based on their specific needs and risks.
So it's not one size fits all.
Not at all, and while it was made for U.S. federal agencies, it's massively influential and used globally.
And NIST also has FIPS.
FIPS, yeah. Federal Information Processing Standards. These are specifically for the U.S. federal government, setting baselines for secure computer systems.
Okay. And one more crucial one, especially for retail or e-commerce.
PCI DSS. Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard.
Got to protect those credit card numbers.
Absolutely. This comes from the Payment Card Industry Security Standards Council. It's a very robust standard, mandatory for any organization that handles payment card data processing, storing, transmitting. Very stringent requirements.
Wow, that's quite the landscape of standards. They really do set that essential baseline, don't they?
They provide that common ground, yes.
Okay, let's drill down into something fundamental that these standards often cover. Password and access control.
Critical areas. Password standards, the source calls them the architects of secure access. Basically, the rules for creating and protecting passwords.
What are the key technical bits the source mentions?
Well, hashing is number one, turning the password into a unique, irreversible string of characters.
So you don't store the actual password.
Right, but just hashing isn't enough anymore. Then comes salting.
Salting, like adding salt to food.
Kind of. You add a unique, random piece of data, the salt, to each password before you hash it.
Why do that?
Because, as the source explains, it means even if two people use the same password, say password 123.
Which they shouldn't.
Which they definitely shouldn't. But if they do, the salt makes their stored hash values completely different.
Ah. So an attacker can't just look up the hash for password 123.
Exactly. It kills pre-computed attacks like rainbow tables, which rely on matching known password hashes. Salting forces attackers to compute hashes for every password and every salt. Hugely increases the work.
Very clever. Essential defense. What else for passwords?
Encryption is mentioned, especially TLS, to protect passwords when they're sent over the network browser to website, for example.
So they aren't sent in plain text.
Right. And strong password reset processes. You need robust identity verification so attackers can't just hijack accounts by resetting the password.
And password managers get a nod.
Yes, the source mentions tools like Bitwarden found on their website, apparently, that help users create and manage unique, complex passwords. Much better than reusing weak ones.
And this all ties back to privacy regulations, too.
Absolutely. The source reminds us that GDPR, CCPA, ISO 27001, ISO IEC 27018, they're all about protecting user data. And strong password practices are a fundamental control for that.
It really is all connected.
Yeah.
Okay, so passwords get you in the door. Access control standards define what you can do once you're inside.
Precisely. Who gets access to what resources or data? And the source highlights a core principle here, least privilege.
Give people only the access they absolutely need.
Exactly that. Minimum necessary permissions to do their job. The insight is this drastically limits the damage if an account gets compromised, reduces the attack surface.
Makes total sense. Only give out the keys required. What about the tech for authentication?
The source lists common protocols for different contexts. SSH keys, often for Linux systems, Kerberos in Microsoft environments, OAuth for many web apps, SEML for third-party sign-on.
Different tools for different situations.
Yes.
And different models for managing access.
Yes. Several types of access control models. UMAC, mandatory access control based on strict classifications like security clearances.
Top secret, secret.
That kind of model. Then RBAC, role-based access control, probably the most common. Access based on your job role, admin, user, editor.
Makes sense for organizations.
Also, rule-based access control, applying rules based on conditions like time of day or location. And DIC, discretionary access control, where the data owner themselves grants or denies access.
So organizations pick what fits best.
Or often a combination. Plus, you need ways to identify users, usernames, smart cards, biometrics, and of course, MFA.
Multi-factor authentication, pretty standard now.
Essential layer. The source also called out PAM, privilege access management.
What's that?
Stricter control specifically for powerful admin accounts, preventing misuse or escalation of privileges, and critically, an audit trail.
Logging everything.
Every event. Who did what, when, system logs. The source mentions Radius servers as a good way to centralize this accounting, and that specialized systems like medical ones often have built-in trails for compliance.
And one more, conditional access policy, cloud-based.
Yeah, common in cloud setups like Azure AD or Okta. It uses signals who you are, where you are, device health, detected risk to make real-time decisions, grant access, deny it, or maybe force MFA. Very dynamic.
Very granular control. Okay, that covers a lot of the digital side. But security governance isn't just about computers, is it? Physical security matters too.
Oh, absolutely critical, and sometimes gets less attention than it should. The source is right to stress it because a physical breach can bypass all your digital defenses.
If someone can just walk up to a server.
Exactly. Game over for a lot of digital security. So, physical controls are fundamental.
What kind of controls does the source mention? Some have interesting names.
They do. A man trap is a classic. It's basically a small room with two interlocking doors.
Like an airlock.
Precisely. Only one door can be open at a time. Only one person goes through. Stops people sneaking in behind someone else tailgating.
Clever. What else?
Turnstile. You see these everywhere. Rotating gate lets one person through per authorization. Crowd control, too.
Access control vestibule. Sounds similar to a man trap.
Similar function and enclosed area between doors for checking credentials, but maybe less imposing than a full man trap sometimes.
And the human element. Guards.
Trained guards, yeah.
Yeah.
Monitoring, responding, just being a visible deterrent. Visitor logs are important too.
Keeping track of who comes and goes.
Right. An audit trail for visitors. Signed in, signed out. Who's responsible for them? Their sponsor. Accountability.
And the tech side. Cards and cameras.
Proximity cards or fobs. RFID tech usually. Tap the reader, door unlocks. Very common. And CCTV, surveillance cameras. Monitoring, recording, evidence if needed. These all form that essential physical layer.
Good reminder that security starts at the front door. Literally. Okay, back to digital for a bit. Encryption and procedures.
Right. Encryption protocols are mandated by good governance. Why? To protect sensitive info, make it unreadable, even if stolen.
Crucial for privacy compliance.
Absolutely. GDPR, IPA, they often require it. If data gets breached but it's strongly encrypted, the impact is massively reduced.
How do organizations choose the right encryption?
Well, the source mentions picking the algorithm RSA for asymmetric, AES for symmetric, ECC, which is good for low-power devices, ephemeral keys for one-time sessions.
Lots of options.
And considering key length and lifespan, there's a trade-off, the source points out. Smaller keys, like 128-bit AES, are faster. Larger keys, like 4096-bit RSA, are much more secure but slower.
The speed versus security balancing act.
Always. Governance dictates the minimum strength based on risk and data type. Now, procedures are also key.
Documented steps for doing things.
Exactly. Standardizing processes, providing clarity, consistency, reducing errors, especially for critical or complex tasks.
Like standard operating procedures, SOPs.
That's the idea. The source lists important ones. Change management procedures, the steps for initiating, evaluating, approving, implementing, monitoring changes. Controlled and safe.
Makes sense. What about people joining or leaving?
Onboarding procedures, how you integrate new people. Orientation, training, getting them the resources and access they need securely. The source notes signing an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, is typical here to protect sensitive info legally.
And offboarding.
The reverse, systematic exit. Returning equipment, crucially, revoking all their access, maybe exit interviews, protects data, maintains security.
Got it. Onboarding in, offboarding out securely. Playbooks, what are those?
Playbooks are described as a subset of procedures, but for very specific situations, like an incident response playbook or a disaster recovery playbook.
More detailed for a specific event.
Yeah, comprehensive guides, predefined actions, communication plans, decision trees for specific scenarios. So when, say, a specific type of attack happens, everyone knows exactly what to do.
Takes the guesswork out when you're under pressure.
Exactly. Avoids panic, ensures a consistent, effective response. Now, all these internal things, policies, standards, procedures, they don't live in a vacuum. They're hugely shaped by external considerations.
The world outside the organization's walls.
Right. Laws, industry trends, global events, they all impact governance.
How so?
Well, they dictate compliance needs, operational constraints, even strategy. The source says adherence is essential for legality, reputation, survival sometimes.
Like regulatory factors.
Yeah.
Laws and rules.
Exactly. Data privacy laws like GDPR, financial reporting rules, environmental regs, coming from governments or industry bodies, you have to comply. Avoids fines, lawsuits, maintains trust.
And broader legal factors beyond specific regulation.
Yeah, things like contracts, intellectual property, liability, litigation risk. Governance needs robust legal strategies.
Industry factors matter too.
Definitely. Every industry changes. Tech, consumer trends, competition. You have to adapt. The source gives an example, DSHEA in the U.S. health supplement sector. Specific rules on production, labeling, ads that manufacturers must follow if they sell there.
So governance has to be industry aware. What about location?
Local regional factors. Culture, economy, infrastructure, local laws. Understanding these is vital. The source uses CCPA, again, the California Consumer Privacy Act. If you do business impacting Californians, you have to comply with their specific data rights, regardless of where you're based.
Right. And national level.
Interacting with the country you operate in. National policies, economic conditions, stability, strategies need to align. APA in the U.S. is the example here, the national law for medical data privacy.
And finally, global factors.
The big picture, international trade, geopolitics, cross-border compliance. You need a global view. PCI DSS is used as an example. Again, it's a global standard. If you take credit cards online internationally, you follow PCI DSS everywhere.
It's clear you can't just look inwards. These external forces are constantly shaping the rules.
They absolutely dictate major parts of the governance landscape.
Which means you can't just set this stuff up once and forget it.
Yeah.
How do organizations keep their governance effective?
Constant vigilance. Monitoring and revision are absolutely key, as the source emphasizes. It's an ongoing process.
Checking things regularly.
Yes. Regular audits and assessments. Are we compliant? Are there new vulnerabilities? Do our controls still make sense against current risks and rules?
And policies themselves need updates.
All the time. Policy and procedure revisions happen because of audits, new tech, business changes, new threats, and especially changing legal requirements. You have to stay current with the latest standards and laws.
Keeps you from falling behind.
And addresses emerging threats. You also need employee training.
Keeping everyone informed.
Informed, reinforcing good practices, maintaining that security-aware culture. It's not just a one-off induction thing.
And tracking those legal changes you mentioned.
Critical. Vigilance for changes in laws, international, national, regional, industry-specific. Essential for compliance, for managing risk.
So it's not a project with an end date, it's a continuous cycle.
Exactly. The source calls it a cyclical and proactive approach. Assess, adapt, enhance, repeat. And proactive means anticipating threats, checking your readiness before things happen, making adjustments ahead of time.
Being prepared, not just reactive.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Okay, we've covered the rules, processes, standards, external pressures, keeping things updated. But who's actually in charge of all this?
Good question. That brings us to governance structures and the specific roles and responsibilities, especially around data.
So the organizational setup for managing this.
Right. How management and decision-making authority are structured. The source mentions a few levels.
Like boards?
Boards of directors, yes.
Yeah.
Top level. Setting strategy, overseeing management, accountable to stakeholders. They have ultimate responsibility for risk oversight, including cybersecurity.
Ensuring accountability.
Accountability, transparency, ethical leadership. Then you have committees.
Internal groups.
Yeah, task forces focused on specifics. Audit committee, risk committee, maybe a dedicated cybersecurity committee. They allow for deeper focus, more expertise.
And government entities are structures too.
In the public sector, yes. Federal, state, local governance making policies, enforcing laws, providing public services under a governance framework.
Okay. Within organizations, there's this centralized versus decentralized idea.
Right. These are like two ends of a spectrum for decision-making power. Centralized means authority is concentrated at the top uniform, maybe slower.
Decentralized.
Power is distributed down potentially faster, more agile, but needs good coordination. The right balance depends on the organization size, complexity, goals. It hugely impacts how things get done.
And within these structures, defining specific data roles is vital.
Absolutely critical. The source stresses this for ensuring data integrity, security, and compliant use. Clear roles, clear accountability. Several key roles are mentioned.
The data owner.
The data owner is ultimately accountable for a specific set of data. They safeguard it, ensure policies for its use are followed. They might not handle it day to day, but the buck stops with them for that data.
Got it. Then the data controller.
The controller defines the purpose and means of data processing. Why are we collecting this? How will we use it? They're legally responsible for compliance with regs like GDPR, getting consent, privacy notices. They set the data processing policies.
So controller sets the rules, data processor follows them.
Exactly. The processor handles the data on behalf of the controller, following their instructions strictly. Internal team or external vendor, they have to uphold data subject rights, keep records, audit trails.
Okay. What about the data custodian?
The custodian is responsible for the secure storage and technical protection of the data, encryption, backups, access controls on the storage systems, implementing retention policies, archiving. They handle the infrastructure, securing the data, ensuring it complies with privacy rules for storage.
And the last one, data steward.
Data stewards focus on data quality and usability. They fix errors, maintain metadata so the data makes sense, classify data by sensitivity, and work with custodians to apply the right controls. They ensure the data is fit for purpose and understood.
Wow. Owner is accountable, controller sets policy, processor acts, custodian stores securely, steward maintains quality.
Very distinct roles.
But highly interconnected. Each one is crucial for a solid data governance framework, making sure data is handled properly, securely, compliantly, through its whole life cycle.
Okay, that really was a deep dive. We went from policies versus guidelines.
Right through the SDLC stages.
Hit those key standards, ISO, NIST, PCI DSS.
Talked passwords, access control, even physical security like man-traps.
Covered encryption, procedures like change management and onboarding.
How external factors shape everything.
The need for constant monitoring and revision.
And finished with the structures and those critical data roles: owner, controller, processor, custodian, steward.
Yeah, it's incredibly clear now. Effective security governance isn't just one thing, is it? It's this whole dynamic ecosystem.
Rules, processes, standards, people, responsibilities, structures, all working together, hopefully, to keep information safe in what's, let's face it, an increasingly complex world. And understanding these pieces, why they're there, how they fit it seems crucial for anyone dealing with data, building software, or just trying to operate securely today.
Absolutely. Whether you're hands-on technical or in management, this framework touches everything.
So, thinking about everything we've covered, the speed of change in tech, threats, regulations, the need for that constant cycle of monitoring and revision. Here's something maybe to ponder. Given that governance is this continuous loop involving people, tech, and process, what single aspect do you think is the toughest for organizations to consistently get right? Or maybe the most critical piece to nail down to ensure governance is truly resilient and adaptable for the future, not just compliant right now?
Is the tech, the training, staying ahead of laws, something else? A really tough question, because weakness in one area can undermine the whole thing.
Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.